Hello and welcome to another episode of the Super Soul Model series. I'm your host, James Granström, and thank you so much for tuning in. Today's episode is how to exercise your intuitive muscle. Guys, thanks for tuning in. Welcome back to another episode. Exercising your intuitive muscle. How do you do it and why is it important? I'm going to answer all of these questions, but let's first talk about what intuition is. If you look in the dictionary, intuition is knowing something beyond any reasonable doubt within the moment, without any backup. It just means you have this true knowing. On my take on it, I've got a different slant. Intuition means tuition, and I love words because if you look at the word in, that means within, and tuition, which means teacher. So it means teacher from within, tuition in, or intuition. So that I find super fascinating. And really what it is we are multifaceted, multi-sensory human beings. We think we only have 5 senses, but we have a lot more to us. You know, that's why they sometimes called ESP or intuition or something like that a sixth sense. But there's a lot more to us than just meets the eye. We human beings have been created and have the most powerful, wonderful abilities that we haven't even really tapped into. And I am fascinated by our capacity as human beings to be more than what we think we are, just roaming around this planet. There is much more to us, and I'm fascinated in discovering and unveiling the unlimitedness of our potential. And I have been fascinated by this for such a long period of time. When I was a kid, my mum bought me a book saying how to use your brain, how to use all of your brain. And I've always been fascinated by how can we use more than 10% of our brain. And I want to know, I want to find out, and I want to have my own experience. And, so I'm constantly asking these questions. And I'm constantly looking to expand my awareness, but not only expand my awareness, have the experience so I can come back and report in, because I love to go and have an experience and then I love to come back and share what I found. Intuition is something that I feel I've only really discovered properly since I've been meditating, but I'm going to tell you about that in a minute. But we've talked about that intuition is really the teacher within, but it also could be labeled loads of other labels. It could be labeled like your higher energy. It could even be labeled like God. It could be labeled life. It could be labeled like messages or sensors or energy. It doesn't really matter what you really call it, but your intuition is with you. And what I want to share in this episode is how you can exercise and flex that muscle more regularly, because like anything, the more you use it, the more you give it your attention, the stronger it becomes. And it's just like having another tool in your back pocket that you can access whenever you need it on demand. It's basically like having on-demand help from within, on-demand teacher from within, on-demand energy impulses from within. And it's so powerful and it's so important, because without it, you wouldn't be able to function as properly or as well as you could do in this life. It's basically like saying, I'm going to get in the car without a GPS. And when you activate your intuition, and I want to share with you in this episode some ways in which you can activate it and at least get the ball rolling, create some more momentum around your intuition, then you're going to find your GPS system works like you have on your iPhone or your Android phone. That GPS system you really need to help you, because it knows more than you do, because it's coming from a bird's eye perspective. And that intuition is always helping you. You have your own intuition that you can tap into that will basically give you guidance on a moment-to-moment basis. So that's what we're going to talk about today. And I love this topic because it's quite unlimited. And once you really start to grasp that this faculty of your mind, faculty of your being, faculty of your mind, body and soul is available to you, you're going to want to tap into it regularly so you can ask it questions and so you can listen to its messages, because the message is always what's going to help you where you need to go next. And we all need that. Even the people who feel like super in control, everybody needs a message about what they need to do next. And when you tap into your intuition and you start using your intuition more, your energy, your message, your inner teacher will start giving it to you quite simply in a way that you'll be able to understand. Now, why is intuition so important? Well, because it helps you connect to life itself. It helps you feel safe. It helps you feel secure. It keeps you out of trouble. It can get you out of trouble having your intuition. And that is key, because as human beings, you know, whenever there's danger, we need to be reminded to be kept safe again. You know, if you're a child, or should I say, if you were looking after little children, you want to keep them safe. And it's very much like your intuition. Your intuition is trying to keep you safe. It's trying to help you build discretion. It's trying to give you messages of what's right, particularly for you. And it's not just for women, you know, you hear the old adage, oh, women's intuition. I personally believe that women from a young age have intuition because they're able to listen to their body because of their menstrual cycle. So they're far more aware of their body and the impulses that they're sent to them from a young age, more than guys are, more than men are. And it seems like now, because there's a general movement in better diet, and there's a better movement in exercise in the world, there's more talk of meditation. What you're going to find is there's a lot more intuitive beings being able to be understanding and listening to their intuition more than ever before, because it feels like in the last few years there's been a real shift in just the energy of understanding some of these concepts that I'm discussing. But it's really fun and cathartic for me to be able to share this, because this is something I've been doing for a very long time, you know, since I began meditating like 17 years ago. But it's great to be able to share the information that I picked up and some of the stories that I've experienced, because then, you know, that the stories really help you, maybe remind you of your own stories of when you've used it and you weren't sure. And what I want to share with you today is some not only really great stories, but how you can activate it properly. Now, what I've noticed is that how can we possibly start using intuition for our highest good? We personally know what it is. We know it's these subtle messages that we get in a moment-to-moment basis. You may be driving a car, and as you're driving a car, you may be, you know, told to, you get this feeling that there's a car coming around the corner. I had this experience today, and this experience like made me think, God, I've got to do a podcast on this. I was driving today round a big corner, blind corner, and I just got this sense that there was a car coming the other way. And I almost had a feeling that it was quite a big car and it could potentially come on my side. So I took a really large, wide turn around this big turn, keeping myself well on the edge of the road. And funnily enough, there was a big car almost driving in the middle side of the road coming up the hill as I was going down the hill. And it was fascinating because I went away and I had my mum in the car with me, and she was like, wow, that was great that you took the wide turn. And I just said, I kind of sensed that there was this car coming around. And that, my friends, is what intuition is. It was my intuition saying, hang on, take it wide here because there's something coming up. And that's exactly what happened. And it's fascinating. And maybe you've had that experience too. But your intuition is always trying to keep you safe. And it's always trying to look after you. And it's always trying to guide you. And I'm so pleased I listened to that little subtle message. I can't tell you how I got that feeling or how I got that sense. It just appeared within me. And so I just listened to it without overriding it with my mental thinking. It was just like, oh, I've got a sense, take that wide. And so that's what I did. So as soon as you find yourself overthinking, you override the intuition. So we want to stop doing that and start allowing the sensory perceptions that we get to be able to, so we can listen to them and then apply them on a moment-to-moment basis like that in the car. Another thing that you might have found with intuition is I think of someone and then they phone call me. You know, I think of someone and then they call me on the phone like a few minutes later and I'm like, wow, how did I do that? Did I do that? Did I create that? Did I expect that? Was that happening? Well, it doesn't really matter. There's all parts to it. Yes, yes, maybe I created, but yes, I received it, but yes, I also sensed it. So it's all part of this connectivity. So the clearer your mind, the more relaxed you become, the easier it is for your intuition to speak to you and give you those subtle messages. What I've also noticed is, like, with intuition, is it just can help you make a good business decision. It can help you make a good diet decision. For me, my body was telling me, it was indicating to me, like, I pick up a book and then suddenly it says, do not drink alcohol, have a fruit juice instead. Can you believe that? I read that like in 2002 when I was in Korea, and I met two people, one the year before, one the year after. I'd never met anyone like that, and basically they were saying, I don't drink alcohol. And I was like, that is the weirdest thing. Why am I seeing somebody who doesn't drink alcohol? So I saw that as the first beginning of a message, then the second message, a guy a year later, and then the third message I got from life. It was my intuition, doesn't matter what you call it, the universe. Then I picked up a book, and in the book, the whole book that I picked out, I read one sentence, and it says, don't drink alcohol, have a fruit juice when you instead. No matter where you go, have a fruit juice. It's better. It's better for your body, it's better for your mind, it's better for your spirit. And I thought, God, is this for everybody or is this just for me? And I took it that it was just for me. And yes, it took me another couple of years before I had actually changed my drinking habits and stopped drinking completely. But that was my intuition guiding me to something that would be far superior for my way of living, that would better me for my mind, body and soul. And so I found that as intuition guiding me. Now, for your experience, that's going to be something completely different for you, but that's what I took in for me. And I thought that was like really weird and fascinating at the same time, because yes, this was new information coming at me, this was new ideas coming at me, but I knew that there was this aspect of me that was guiding me like a GPS to me, to a better space, to a better feeling space in my life. Because the better you feel, the clearer your intuition. The worse you feel, the more blocked your intuition. I've always noticed that the happier one is, the clearer your intuition. The happier you are, the greater health you have. So the key to real life is to find something to be really super happy about. So you're a clear channel. It's like your radio frequency's not on mono, it's on FM stereo. So that is what I've noticed, but I've really noticed that intuition is way more easier to grasp, to understand, to listen to understand the impulses when you're relaxed, when you spend more time in silence, when you spend more time in nature, particularly when you meditate, maybe when you pray, but it's really when you begin to calm your energy right down, you're able to listen to these subtle messages that your life and your body is giving you on a moment-to-moment basis. And also, when you speak less and listen more, that's when you're able to hear these intuitive messages as well. I find that fascinating. I continue to find it fascinating because there's no science behind it. I'd love to say that there's a science behind it, but there is no science. I can't tell you when my intuition's going to tell me to swerve right. It just does it in the moment. I can't tell you when I'm going to pick up this insight that someone's going to call and then they call. Or I think about this job and then it suddenly comes in, or this client or something like that. This is just my intuition giving me these messages, these subtle messages that I've learned to interpret. It's not something that I just got. It's just something that I've learned to interpret. And it's just a very subtle message. It's not like so much a thought. It's a subtle feeling that comes. And I noticed previously when I've overridden it with thought, it kind of blocks it. So it's kind of like begin to listen to these subtle messages through a bit more silence, through less talking, more listening, for sure spending a bit more time in nature, and for sure meditating a whole lot more. Now, what I've noticed about intuition is that you can exercise it in some really fun ways. Like, I play cards. I like to play cards. My family love to play cards. And I've found that playing cards is a great way to activate and flex your intuition. I love to play a game called Gin Rummy. There's loads of other games you can play. Whist, two-handed bridge, that kind of stuff. Doesn't really matter what you play, even if you play bridge. But it's not so much the card game you play. It's when you're playing somebody else. the more you begin to play cards, if you like it, I love it, I find it quite fun, it's something I've always grown up with, you begin to sense what other people's cards are, and you can begin to sense what you're potentially going to pick up. That's fascinating. And right there, you are beginning to exercise intuition. And maybe that's why people have tarot cards and things like that. But cards have this wonderful energy. Cards have this beautiful energy where you're able to just begin to interpret the subtle, active use of your intuition. So start playing a bit more cards and start activating your intuition. You're going to find that it will spill over into different areas of your life, because you'll get these subtle feelings. And when you get the subtle feelings like, hey, I thought that was going to be your card, now you know what that feeling is. And when that feeling presents itself to you in a daily moment, maybe when you're driving a car, maybe you're getting on a train, maybe you need to get off the train because you just get this subtle hunch, doesn't matter what it is. If you can understand what that feeling is, then you know that's your intuition speaking. You listen to it and don't override it with your thinking. So many times, like I've gone into London on the train and just thought, oh, I think I'm just going to jump off the train. I know it feels a bit packed, but I just get this feeling, just get off the train, and just try and get another route into town. Maybe I take another subway or underground to get into London and another way. And then when I've looked back, someone, has called in and said, oh, there was a real block on the train. And it's amazing that my GPS or my intuition is telling me to get off a train a little bit early so that I can get into town, on time. Does that happen all the time? No, but when it does happen, I fully realized that was my GPS, that was my intuition, like really kicking in. I feel so proud of myself, and I acknowledge it and I say thank you, because each time I'm thankful for that GPS or that intuition, then I know that subtle feeling again when it comes back to me, and that's really, really exciting. And I often find that when you're in the city, of course, you can feel bombarded. I always think that it's like loads of radio waves all over the city, and when you're in nature, it's a lot more calmer, and you can feel a lot more relaxed and a lot more receptive to some of these sort of intuitive feelings that you get. But it works the same in the city. You just have to be a lot more relaxed, because when you're stressed, it's like you're putting up the barriers to receiving those subtle impulses and that subtle GPS inside your body, inside your consciousness that's working to share with you what it needs to share with you to keep you safe and sound. Now, another one to keep you flexing that intuitive muscle, like I said, is listening to the silence. When you begin to spend a bit more time in silence, like I said, less talking, more listening. You've got 2 ears, 1 mouth, 2 ears, so you listen more. When you begin to listen, you'll begin to hear these subtle messages. Maybe they won't come in a vocal form. Maybe they'll come in a picture form. It's very different for everybody. But for me, intuition really, like I said, comes like a subtle impulse, like this subtle knowing. And that's how it comes for me. And it doesn't come as a picture, it's just like, do this. So I just do it. I've practiced it so much now that I know this subtle feeling that I was describing earlier. And that's what you have to find for you. Find this subtle feeling so you can know that that's your intuition talking to you. Now, another way to flex your intuitive muscle is by breathing deeply. When you breathe deeply, you slow your nervous system down. You slow down cortisol. Your body begins to reset. And then when you do, you're able to hear the subtle messages that your body's giving you through your consciousness, like your intuition. Another way that you can begin to flex your intuitive muscle is by bathing. Getting in the bath grounds you, and as it grounds you, it slows your nervous system down, and that makes you again more receptive to subtle messages. So bathing's really great. I know that Tom Ford has been, people have said in articles that he bathes at least a couple of times a day to get ideas so that he can create, the next line, or so he can be inspired for the next piece of clothing or whatever that he's going to create. And I find that fascinating, because when you're in the bath, you slow your energy down, you slow your mental chatter down, and as you do, you become receptive. boom, that's when you can get these intuitive nudges. So so bathing, being in the shower, that type of stuff really, really does work, because it slows that brainwave pattern of yours right down. Water, being in the elements, really slows our brainwave patterns down. During the day, we're usually in a beta pattern. In the morning and in the evening, our brainwaves begin to slow down, where you probably find you're a lot more receptive, highly intuitive at those times, my friends. When you're in a beta brainwave pattern, you're less likely to be intuitive, because your brainwave is working at a much, much faster level. So that is why you'll probably find in the morning and in the evening, you may be more creative and be better at listening to these subtle messages then. Now, another way you can exercise your intuitive muscle is just by rubbing your third eye, just gently stroking it. You activate it just by rubbing it, or you could just be closing your eyes and meditating and just focusing on your third eye chakra, which is just between your two eyes. Why? Because this area is known as the seat of intuition right here. It's your foresight. So that's why this is where it resides. So you can just rub it gently, and you begin to gently activate it. You could also listen to some audios with some binaural beats that are particularly for this frequency of your chakra, which is here. And this color is indigo. So the color, or you could imagine the color indigo if you're a visual inclination. If you are auditory, you could definitely download some. I like the Jonathan Goldman chakra chants for this particular area if you're wanting to tap into your third eye and become more intuitive. Or you could just begin to sit in silence and keep your back straight. That will do. So there's loads of different ways you can activate and flex that intuitive muscle. But my favorite is just to sit and listen and observe your thoughts, because as you do, the mind chatter will just carry on, but you'll just observe it. And as you do, that's when subtle feelings will come up. Like so many times, like when maybe I've misplaced my keys or something like that, I just sit down and close my eyes and meditate, and I just wait until I receive some little answer. And then I think, I think I put them in that pocket, in those trousers, which I've hung away, and things like that. That's what I found many, many times have worked for me. But obviously, intuition is a personal thing. How you interpret it is a personal thing. But silence is key, and silence is golden to be able to listen to that. This particular chakra, the sixth chakra of intuition. Now, last year in the summer, I was swimming and I bumped my head right in the middle of my third eye. And I got this real scratch or graze right there. And I thought to myself, are you kidding me? Of all places, it's right bang smack in the middle of my third eye. And I laughed at myself. It took about a week to heal. But, if you're going out into the world and you've got this big sort of scratch right in your third eye, it did make me laugh a lot, because I thought to myself, how do I interpret this? What is this? What does this mean? Some people just go, no, you just banged your head on the swimming pool swimming. But I don't think like that. I think differently. I think, well, what does this mean? Does this mean anything? And nothing means anything unless you give it meaning. And how I interpreted it was just like a nice little wake up to recalibrate my third eye, because maybe I'd been listening to messages to do something like this podcast, but I hadn't been doing it. I'd override it with my thought, thinking, no. But then, as soon as I banged my head on that third eye, I'm not joking, I set up this podcast. I was like, right, this is it. I've got to do this. And so who knows how you interpret it. Interpret it the way you want to interpret it. But for me, what I have read in a Florence Scovel Shivan book, which is How to Use Your Intuition, funnily enough, she's got one of these books. She's the founder of affirmations and things like that. Louise Hay loves her books. Now, I really love her books as well. They're written in 1920 or something like that. So it's got a really old English writing. However, the message is still extremely poignant. But what I found was, in one of her books, she said, should you get a bump on your head, see it as a recalibration for something. Now, I remember Liam and Noel Gallagher in the documentary Supersonic. I really loved this documentary. I thought it was brilliant. I love Oasis. But what I found absolutely fascinating was Noel began to play the guitar, Liam was trying to sing, but it didn't really sort of get very far. You know, he felt like he was missing a beat kind of thing. But then he got in a fight and got hit over the head with a hammer. Now, this sounds really graphic. What's this doing in the Super Soul Model series? I'm going to tell you exactly why. Because he said straight afterwards, I know it sounds random, I know it sounds mad, and I know it sounds like a bit aggressive, but he goes, I'm really thankful for that person who hit me over the head with a hammer, because although it was pretty gruesome, they knocked the music into me. And he goes, ever since that happened to me, I was about 16 or 17, I started understanding the music much better, and from then on I was great. How about that? And that's Liam's own words in the movie in the documentary movie Supersonic. So go check it out or listen to it. And I'm saying that everyone needs to go and get knocked on the head. I'm not saying that, but you know, again, that was my interpretation. And then when I got hit on the head there, maybe it was just like, it was just a reminder of what I already knew deep down. And it's been great because I get these subtle messages constantly, and you can too when you begin to apply exercising your intuitive muscle. Now, I've talked about rubbing your third eye. I've talked about accidentally hitting your head or getting hit. I'm not wanting that for anybody at all, and I don't recommend it, but I'm just saying it's something you can be aware of. But the main thing is to become more relaxed, because as you become more relaxed, you can hear the subtle messages that your body's teaching you. And the happier you become, the clearer the messages that you're able to interpret as well. Now, I've got two more things that I really, really rate. Number one is less talking and more listening. I might have already talked about that before, but my last one is really this. Write down, I want to feel intuitive today. Now, I've got a certain thing, setting my intentions every single day. And one of the things I do write often is, I want to feel intuitive today, and I want to see evidence in my own interpretation of me being and feeling intuitive. And when I get things like that car swerve today, when I get things like book this flight at this time, you can't make it up. You know, you cannot make it up. So again, it's your own subtle interpretation, but that is how you exercise your intuitive muscle. I hope you've enjoyed today's show. I hope that there's something that you can take away, that you can activate and start practicing flexing that intuitive muscle of yours, because the more you use your intuition, the better it will become. And the more, not only will it keep you safe, it will help you make better decisions from wherever you are. And if you ever find yourself at a crossroads, not knowing which way to go, your intuition will guide you. It's constantly guiding you like a GPS. So use it for what it is. It's that inner teacher giving you knowledge that you can't necessarily need to understand or grasp. It's just pointers, go here, do this, do that. And it's very subtle and it's in the moment. Use it, because not only will your life improve, your relationships will improve, your business will improve, everything will begin to improve, because it's part of your multifaceted being. And the more people that start using their intuition, the better life will be, because like the GPS, it's always guiding you where you need to go. And we don't all need to go to the same place at the same time. What we are doing is we all have our own unique mission and our own unique path, and your intuition will always guide you there in that direction. Anyway, I hope you've loved today's show. I've loved being able to share some of this message with you. Intuition does work. Exercise it. Thanks for tuning in. If you've got any questions, please DM me on Instagram at James Granström, or hit me up on YouTube below here. And thank you so much. And as always, I wish you green lights all the way.